I just had a great conversation with our friends Thomas Beutel, who was on the podcast not so long ago, and Emilie Wapnick, who makes a return to the Multipod. We talked to her, I think it was back in 2021, something like that. At any rate, this is a big moment for the Puttyverse, for all of us Putty Peep and people following the community. We moved to a new platform based on the Circle platform website. And this just happened like 2-3 weeks ago. So we thought as part of that, why not make use of their live Zoom kind of recording room and space and do basically a live episode of the Multipod, which is also something maybe we've done that before, but hey, why not? We make the most of it and explore our new tools and things that we can play with in the Circle. And so we invited people to watch along. They could join in if they wanted and send us some questions. But basically, it was the three of us. And so then it was a question of, well, what are we going to talk about? So AI came to mind, of course, top of mind in all kinds of places these days anyway. But, the Puttyverse is a place that just fosters creativity, supports it, so deeply. And here comes artificial intelligence, which... depends on your perspective. Is it a tool to help with creativity? Is it a way that something that maybe interferes with natural human creativity, perhaps? Really, it's a question of authenticity. So that's the theme of our conversation here today. We talk about our own experiences with using AI in various ways, and how do we maintain, an authentic connection with the work that we do, but really then with the people around us. And as we interact in general with things, content on YouTube and podcasts and whatever else it may be, but in an authentic human way. Because I think that's where this is all heading. There's a lot of pushback against AI, I sense, just the last little while. It all changes so fast, but we hear a lot about AI slop and people wanting to make sure, is the person I'm hearing, especially maybe watching, but definitely hearing or reading, is that a real person or was that all just done by AI? People want that human connection. The Puttyverse is wonderful for that. It's all about bringing, of course, real people together in community. Sure, it's online, but we have great ways to interact and, chat and hang out and sometimes meet in person. So that's kind of the root of the community. And, we don't want to kind of bury our heads in the sand and say we're never going to use AI, but it's really a question of how do we integrate it with that community experience that we're so lucky to have over there in the Puttyverse. So this is our conversation. We had a lot of fun. It may certainly be the first of many on, who knows, different topics and different formats or something, but it was fun to do it, to get into Circle. Now, one last note is that you see me on video right now, but we decided just to publish the audio, a big issue with the Puttyverse, and rightly so, a question to privacy and permission. So although in the end it was just the three of us talking, other people were popping in and out and watching and so on, and we're very careful about what we publish outside of the Puttyverse. So you'll hear, this will just switch over to audio here in a few seconds. You'll hear the audio version, which is just fine. Again, sit back, relax, enjoy the conversation, and, we'll do video whenever video is appropriate. But otherwise, it's a great conversation, and I hope you enjoy it.
Welcome everyone who's watching and listening in the future. I am super excited for this live recording of the Multipod. I don't have like an extensive intro, but I did just want to say the Multipod podcast has been running since, I believe, December 14th, 2017. I went back in your archives, Ted, and that was when the first episode went up, which is amazing. And it started like as a Puttyverse, or I guess back then it was the Putty Tribe podcast. Sort of independent, but we encouraged it and we hosted it within the site, and then it kind of became its own thing. So it's really cool to do this within the verse and in the new platform. I just thought, like, we have this live room, let's see what we can do. It might be a good opportunity to like have some conversations that other people can listen in on, join in. And so I thought of you right away, and here we are.
Awesome.
And I guess you've had 134 episodes since that first one.
Yeah, that's true. The most recent was 134. Yeah.
Yeah. And have they all been interviews? They're not all interviews with Putty Peep, right? But many of them are.
That's a good point. Yeah, the first 7 years basically were virtually all Putty Peep. The last year has been, I've expanded a bit more, a bit broader scope, and building the audience, I guess, as a result. But still a lot of familiar faces people might recognize.
Yeah, that is
Yeah.
awesome. That is awesome because we've got such an interesting community. So it's really cool that you've been doing this.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I will let you guys take it away, and I'll be, yeah, like I said before, I'll be monitoring the chat and the questions, and everyone feel free to, throw your questions in there. Also, feel free to come and go as you please. And just a reminder that the audio will be posted on YouTube and on podcast feeds, right? So if you ask a question, we'll hear your voice, but there won't be any video outside of the Puttyverse with your names or your image or anything like that.
That's right. Yeah. Cool.
All right. Awesome. Take it away.
Well, here we are. Thanks very much. This is cool. Yeah. I'm excited to do this as much as anything as part of, the move to Circle and getting us set up here. And it's a fun event to kind of celebrate that. And as we talked a little bit before, that, maybe the first of a few or many. We'll see if this works out. We could do something like it again. And to that end, we did want to have a topic and really have a focus to our conversation today. So Thomas stepped in, and then that reminded me of a video that he shared with me a few weeks ago about artificial intelligence and kind of the angle to maybe the human element really of artificial intelligence and how we approach creativity, which really struck me as an interesting topic for sure in itself, but then how we can apply that to, of course, us multi-potentialites who are very creative, instinctively creative. And this could be a major series of episodes. So we'll see how far we get in the next kind of 45 minutes, of this episode, but at least scratch the surface, right? Share some thoughts and perspectives on what we think about AI really and creativity and kind of how we're all maybe approaching it. It's what do you even call it? It's a field, it's a technology that just changes so fast. I've even thinking this morning, this like the term AI slop, it seems to have gone from like something you might have heard once or twice. I hear it all the time now, like all the time, everywhere, which is good, I think, because it's good that people are recognizing they're kind of pushing back maybe a bit against, we don't want AI slop right out there and the things that we do. So that's part of it. But yeah, I mean, this is the type of topic that's going to change and evolve. But yeah, let's get into it. We'll see what things we want to share. And yeah, just again, another reminder, if anyone has questions or wants to pop in, you can, raise your hand or leave a question, Q&A, everyone who's watching and listening along. And we'll do our best to incorporate. Another reminder, this is a first time for us with Circle and the whole platform here. So we'll see how it goes. It might be a little buggy and stuff, but, it's part of the fun. We're having fun and just kind of exploring the platform. So Thomas, what is your maybe interaction with artificial intelligence these days like?
Well, I'm glad that we're discussing this topic because there is a lot to say about it. And what I thought I would do is I would first talk about the things that are scaring me about AI.
Yeah.
And then after that, I'm going to talk about all the ways that I use it and some of the reasons why. But first, because I want to acknowledge a lot of the difficulties and the challenges and the things that people are concerned about with AI. One of them is the fact that it is trained on other people's intellectual property.
Yeah.
Right? Often with permission and probably more often without permission. We know that it's trained on everything that's on the internet. So if you ever publish anything on the internet, it probably went into the training. You mentioned AI slop, and that is indeed become a real problem, and it speaks right into that issue of authenticity. Like, am I looking at something that you posted and is that real? Is it a real photo? Is it manufactured? Our phones now have the ability to, after you take a picture, you can fix it up and remove someone, all of that. So there's a lot of questions. Similar to that is deep fakes, especially as it is used for sexual harassment. That's a big, big problem. There are concerns about, as these data centers go up, is our electrical grid going to be able to handle all the requirements, all the the electricity that it needs. There are questions about water use because you have to dissipate the heat and water is used. And then it's also the AI is getting very, very powerful. there were a couple things that happened in the last 2 weeks that sort of raised the hackles on my back. One is Anthropic introduced Claude Mythos, which is sort of their next generation of AI. And they reported that it was so good at finding what they call zero-day defects in software that they have decided to limit this release of AI to just a few security firms, so that security firms can go out there and patch software before it gets put out to general release. Because not only is Claude Mythos good at finding bugs in open source software and Linux and OpenBSD, everything that's out there, but it is also able to actually exploit those bugs. So, that's pretty powerful. It's dangerous, and you don't want that capability to fall into the wrong hands. The other thing that happened in the last 2 weeks is OpenAI had a talk. They introduced their blueprint for what they call the superintelligence transition. And here's some of the things they talked about. They said, we should transition to a 32-hour, 4-day work week without pay cuts for people.
Okay.
They are suggesting a national public wealth fund to distribute AI-driven dividends to people.
Really?
They are suggesting to tax automated labor to fund social safety nets. And they are requesting massive investments in the electrical grid. Now, if OpenAI is talking about these things, right, in the open, they're basically suggesting that there's going to be lots of job losses, and what do we do about it? And how many businesses and consultancies are going to fail because they're made irrelevant because of all this stuff. So this is the stuff that is like, oh my God, wow.
Yeah. And of course it moves so fast.
And it's moving very, very fast. Now, all that said, all right, I've been using AI, let's say the ChatGPT, since it came out in, I think, late 2022 is when it came out. So I'm a software developer, and I am now using Claude Code basically exclusively to interface with my code bases. Within the last 4 months, it's gotten so good that I have really come to trust it. And it's made my job fun, if you can imagine it. Yeah, because debugging software is tedious. You have to try this, you have to, whatever. And I can just throw Claude Code at it, and it finds it pretty quickly, and it fixes it, and then I can move on. I mean, it's just an amazing tool. And as a software developer, you start thinking like, okay, what tools could it build for me, right?
Yeah.
Especially creative tools, and I've been doing that. I was using ChatGPT. I'm using Claude mostly, but I am not the best with words, and especially when I have to write, a sympathetic note or respond to an email. It's like, okay, please find me the right words here to say. I use that.
Does it feel authentic then when you do that to you, your voice?
It feels good, because otherwise I sometimes don't bother, or I don't do it, or I hesitate, or all I write is like, I'm so sorry. And to have a few extra words, and a lot of it's about acknowledgement. And
sure.
It's a great question, Ted. And in that case, it's like, I feel more confident in my response, especially when it comes to something emotional like that, when you're offering sympathy.
Okay, well, here's the next question then. Like, is your perspective maybe that AI is helping you, let's say, learn how to express those kind of sentiments better or clearer with more confidence?
Yes.
Is your mindset then to eventually get to a point where you don't need AI? Now you feel more confident, experienced in being able to write it yourself, right? So that you can, in fact, write stuff like respond like that in the future on your own without needing AI.
I agree.
Needing to ask it.
Yeah, absolutely.
In a sense, it's a teaching tool, but eventually you learn, and you don't need it anymore. You've graduated.
I use AI a lot for coaching and a lot for teaching. I absolutely do that.
Yeah.
So I'm doing a ton of learning through AI. In fact, this is one of the things that I wanted to mention, especially when it comes to multipotentiality. My feeling is that this is like a godsend.
Hmm.
Because, well, yes, before I was Googling things and I was, looking up in books and whatever, but now I can just have a conversation with AI and say, well, what do you think about that? Or if I have this idea and I express it this way, give me some thoughts about it. I'm a curious person.
Yeah.
And boy, does this scratch that itch of curiosity, right? I'm trying to figure out if it's just me or if it's multipods in general, and maybe we can open this up a little bit later in the conversation. I do have a few more things that I wanted to talk about here.
Sure.
But this idea that when you first discovered AI, specifically ChatGPT or Claude or any of these conversational systems, how did you feel about it as a multi-potentialite? For me, it was like, boom, let's go. I want to learn so much. I just want to go through a bunch of other things that I use for it. So I
Yeah, I'm
have
curious.
lots of handwritten journals. I'll take a photograph and have it transcribe it for me into text, which is fun because now I can interact with the text. I do podcasting, and so AI is built into the Descript platform that I use for audio transcription and automatic video transitions and things like that.
Hmm.
When I want to start a blog post, I say to Claude, interview me. Here's I want to write. I have this idea. I want to write about a blog. I want to write about this topic. Give me 5 interview questions so that it helps me flesh out my ideas, and it makes me think about what types of things I should be talking about this topic.
Hmm.
I use it as a thesaurus, like I'm looking for this word and it means this and sort of like this and et cetera, et cetera. I have it critique my writing. So we're talking about authenticity here.
Hmm.
I definitely want my words to be my own words,
Yeah.
but I'm not hesitant at all to go and take what I've written and stuff it in there and say, well, what do you think about it? Give me some ideas, give me some hints. And I'm doing this even for some fiction that I'm writing. And then I tell specifically, I don't want you to write any of the narrative or anything like that, but I want you to tell me, like, if is there something I'm missing or whatever. As an example, I was writing a short fiction, and one of the things it told me, it says, you have the protagonist and you have the antagonist, but you should really sharpen the relationship between the two and show why they are fighting or whatever it might be,
Huh.
I recently put my complete short story in there, and then I took the transcript from an Andrew Stanton TED Talk. He works at Pixar.
Oh, yeah.
And he had this TED Talk where he talked about how to craft story. And I said, okay, here's my story relative to Andrew Stanton's ideas. Is there anything I can improve? And then again, it came back and it said, well, Andrew Stanton talks about 2 + 2, the idea that the audience can put 2 + 2 together and come up with 4. You don't have to do it yourself. So here's a situation where you might want to not reveal so much and let the reader come up with the idea. And I thought, well, that's pretty good,
When you ask it these kinds of questions, is it responding based on an existing kind of profile that you've built, as if it knows you, or is it kind of starting from scratch every time?
I try to give it enough context. In the prompt, I give it the context to say, this is what I'm trying to do. And I'll say, again, I'm not interested in the AI coming up with any words. What I'm interested in is some guidelines, some ideas to improve my writing.
Yeah.
The other thing that I wanted to say is here in San Francisco, we have Waymo, which are robot taxis. And so I use that actually quite extensively now, because going across San Francisco, I can drive it, but then you have to find parking. And parking is very difficult and expensive. And it's not that much more to get into a robot taxi and have it take you across town.
So these are self-driving cars, right?
These are self-driving cars. And it's a very interesting experience. San Francisco is a very hilly city. So sometimes the experience is like being on a roller coaster. But it has always been very safe and accurate and never had any problems with it.
Wow.
So I want to say one more thing, and that is about this idea of going down rabbit holes. And I know that we as multi-potentialites, we do this all the time. But just as an example, one of the things I'm interested in when I'm writing fiction is to show enchantment or show wonder.
Yeah.
And I was sort of following this thread, and it suggested, oh, you should read this French author, Gaston Bachelard. He wrote about enchantment in a book called The Poetics of Space, in this case, Inner Spaces. And they came up with this Greek word called poiesis, which means, well, it's related to poetry. And that reminded me of something that I inherited from my grandmother called a Poesiebuch, or a poetry book. And I never knew what that quite was. When I opened it up, it looked sort of like an autograph book, but it had little drawings and sayings, and I never quite understood what that meant. And so from enchantment to Gaston Bachelard to the Greek word to my grandmother's book, I had it explained to me that the Poesiebuch was something that was very common in Northern Europe, in Germany and in Netherlands. And what it was is that it's like an autograph book, except that you give it to people and they write affirmations in for you, or they write little poems for you, or they draw figures for you. And I've never heard about this before. But it's supposed to be a very sentimental thing, because it's something that your friends and family give to you basically as a gift, and you can then keep this little book for you, as time goes on. I mean, and it's very beautiful. Sometimes there's pressed flowers in it. There's, and so I would not have ever known that if I had not gone down this sort of conversational rabbit hole from this to this to this to this, which is something that you can really do very well in these conversational AIs.
Do you find you are concerned about at least in your own experience, I guess the anthropomorphizing of AI is in turns what's obviously artificial, and it starts to seep in as if it's an actual person, it's a real entity that you're talking to, because it can feed back and forth with you and converse. And are you worried about that rabbit hole?
That's actually a good point. I don't do that myself because I am a software developer, and I actually I've gone through the math of how AI works, how neural networks work, and the large language models. So to me, I am conversing with a machine. This is a tool that I'm conversing with. However, I understand that for many or most people, that may not be the case. They don't necessarily look at it as just a very good piece of math.
Yeah. Well, especially, in an age of isolation and people being often on their own and missing community and stuff like that, which brings back to Puttyverse, of course, why we want to talk about this. But yeah, I mean, you stumble on, or maybe you develop some AI buddy, right, that you chat with. Mm-hmm. And I would think the first day or two or whatever, it's like, yeah, it's just AI. But imagine after a few weeks, after a few months, and you've probably given it a name, or it's given itself a name, and it's like, this is your friend, It's not real. It's weird. It's weird.
Claude has a very good memory, and so I do get surprised sometimes. I mean, I've been talking about going fishing soon, and every time I mention this, it always says, "Oh yeah, I know about your plans for going fishing." It's like, okay, enough of that, please.
Do you just type to it, or do you talk to it, the audio?
I've done a limited amount of audio, but I pretty much am typing.
Right.
I do use it. I mean, I have Claude installed on all my devices, and I can refer to previous conversations on any of those devices. But typically I'm typing it, because that's actually a really good point. I want to give it the proper context. Whenever I'm working on something that I want to know about, I want to have, my prompts are usually 4 or 5 sentences long before I say go.
Oh yeah, okay. Is that good practice then? Because do you find that most people write like one sentence, one quick prompt? Is it better to write a few and help kind of shape it?
I think so. I think the more context that you give it, the better response that you get. And one thing that I should say is, and I know this is common knowledge, but always verify anything when it comes to facts that it gives you. Yeah. I always look at my conversations as giving me direction, not giving me like end all be all description of something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's good practice in life, really, AI or otherwise, just doing any kind of research, the news, of course, and all the things, hearing crazy relatives with their opinions. Like you gotta you gotta research and look it up. Yeah. Well, it's interesting because, like, I mean, we're having this conversation and I'm trying to figure out where everybody listening is going to be placing themselves. Because from my perspective, I feel like a Luddite here because I don't use AI. I've never tried ChatGPT. I don't use any of these Gemini things or whatever. I mean, I recognize the names and stuff, and I have a lot of friends who use it. And just like you, they told me, how it works and so on. And all that being said, I mean, I use Descript, the program we're talking about, and things like that. Riverside is another one in the podcasting world where a lot of AI tools are integrated. But I don't use them with prompts and stuff. I just do. It'll remove, gaps in spaces and filler words and stuff like that. But I've never gone into the prompts and building that. I hate to say it, but some kind of relationship, even if it's just in the moment. And so the question is why? Mostly it's because I haven't had time. I wouldn't say that I'm rejecting it, not interested, but I really haven't had time. It feels very intimidating, overwhelming to me. It's like, do I have even time to like start scratching that surface and getting into that rabbit hole of rabbit holes, like to really learn how to use it. So it's not like I'm fundamentally opposed, but I haven't really had time. But at the same time, I know there's a deep part of me. It's like, I just really deeply resist becoming reliant, dependent on AI in any way. I appreciate they can help me learn teaching. And obviously, I mean, I think we all use it at this point. It comes across our lives in all kinds of ways. But yeah, it's like I will. That's actually I'll use AI for helping me draft kind of show notes and descriptions of podcast episodes when I'm editing for clients. I will never use that actual written description because it's terrible, but it gives me some keywords. It gives me like a bit of an overview and stuff. And then I'll rewrite it. I'll repurpose it. But when I try to do that without getting the AI summary in the first place, yeah, it's a lot longer. I got to try. I mean, I'd have to listen through and take notes and kind of. So I get that AI helps to speed things up. It's just kind of maybe that extra step of becoming more intertwined with it. I'm quite resistant to, but I don't know. I don't know if it's me or how people approach it. And honestly, everyone listening, like, we can build this into comments and threads and stuff here in the circle, going forward over the days and weeks after this episode and get people's input. Of course, it changes so fast, but I feel like it's a pivotal time, I mean, for lots of obvious reasons, but even in 2026, maybe for the AI world and technology, like this could be a year when things kind of tip over into something more substantial, whatever that is.
You mentioned a time-saving tip, where you are using it to find spaces and gaps and get rid of those, and also not having the time to explore it. I'm going to tell you in one way where I cheat, and that is I use Notebook LM extensively. And Notebook LM is a place where you can gather different documents and web pages and YouTubes, and then have a conversation with the content directly.
Oh, yeah.
But one of the things that I do a lot is somebody posts a YouTube and they're going to explain some concept and it's going to take 25 minutes. And I just take that link, put it into Notebook LM, and I tell it, give me an outline, give me a summary. And so 2 minutes later, I have an explanation of what the person was telling me in 25 minutes. It feels like cheating, but on the other hand, sometimes I'm just impatient and I just want to know, like, what's the punchline here? Give me the bottom line. And it's a wonderful tool for doing that. We're talking about authenticity, right? And when I'm doing writing and I'm blogging and obviously, as we're conversing here in our podcast, my thinking is that people are going to lose trust in you if they find out and understand that you're using AI instead of it's you, right? And that's all about connection. And I think as time goes on, we are going to value connection more and more.
Yeah.
And that's where the authenticity piece comes in. Like if you are building a barrier of, using AI, it's like building a barrier between you and your audience, and you and friends and people. So
yeah, that's a good way of putting it.
Yeah.
I think that's a good part of the future then of, I guess, well, content creators is almost just like having a badge or something on your podcast or YouTube, whatever, especially podcast if it's audio, because they may not necessarily be able to tell. But to say that, yes, this is a real person, real voice recorded in real time, in the real writing, research. Sure, they may have used AI probably to help them organize that, but they're the ones delivering it. And then because we can't assume anymore that's the case. It was so obvious up until the last, whatever, few weeks, few months. But, that we just can't assume anymore that what we're hearing is an actual person just like us right now sitting down to record. So people need to say it. They need to put that badge. There's a whole thing in the podcasting world, literally just the last few days, the last week, of how there's companies that are using AI to replicate the voices of, or at least maybe the voice, at least the content, the material, the episodes, and even the artwork of some famous popular podcasts. And they're repurposing them on like podcasting feeds. They're different. If you saw them side by side, like the artwork's a little different, the title, they changed a couple of words, right? But they're basically just using AI to repurpose all this stuff. And if people don't know the difference, if they're just kind of casual fans and they want to watch that hardcore history podcast is one example, and it's been around for years. And if people like want to check that out, they won't know unless they really do their own research, right, and dig in. They won't know the difference. Well, which one's the real, actual, original one? Which one's being replicated here by AI? Right. This is all just blown up in the past few days. It's all going around in podcast chats and stuff. So, I mean, one answer to that's got to be that, if you kind of have to get ahead of it, whether your content's being stolen or not, which of course, that's where you kind of, you need legislation ideally to step in. But regardless, I think people had to get ahead of it and say, whatever it is they do, that real person has made this content. And that'll help you stand out too, because it is ultimately what we're all looking for. And when it comes to like the summaries of videos, I mean, what in turn would make you want to not get the AI summary and actually sit down and watch someone's video? It's because you enjoy watching what they do. Maybe it's a conversation, right, with a couple people, whatever it is. If we didn't have that, like life would be pretty boring. So it's interesting to see the pushback, I guess, about AI that's also happening very fast lately.
Comes down to this idea of connection again. I mean, are you connecting with someone real, or are you just there for the content? And I think for most of us, well, content is interesting. Again, as a multi-potentialite, give me more stuff. I mean, because I want to learn. I want to, I want to go down to these next rabbit holes. Yeah. However, when it comes to connecting with real people, I'm really more interested in the connection.
Yeah. Well, that's a good segue. Emilie is here. She's still here. And, let's bring it back to the Puttyverse, because, I mean, we're here for community and connection. And I guess this helps us combat the isolation for sure, and not just in obvious ways with AI, but even if we use it or not, we come here then to circle, to share our thoughts, to discuss, to pop into meetings and hangouts, huddles like this. What are your thoughts? Do you have is there any specific role maybe for like AI when it comes to the Puttyverse and programming and stuff like that?
So when I was setting up the Circle site, they do have AI tools that you can enable in Circle. They can set it up so that like a video like this, there will automatically be a transcript underneath, or if someone records a voice memo in the chat or in a post, it will transcribe it. There's other things like you can have an agent in your Circle community answering questions. They could do, there's all kinds of stuff. I didn't enable any of it because there was a lot of concern from the community. I know there's also a lot of excitement, but there are definitely some putty people that were like, this freaks me out. And I just felt like this is a big shift for us. Let's hold off. I'm a little freaked out and also a little, curious, like most of us. But yeah, so I didn't enable any of it. It is really interesting. I was listening to your conversation and relating to a lot of it. Like Thomas, I found AI to be a better editor than writer. I will sometimes use it in a similar way where like if I'm writing like a an email that is a little bit harsh, or like I'm trying to like be really direct, but I don't want to sound rude. Sometimes I will like write the email, I'll write a draft that I know is like a little bit too rude, but I'm like, and then I'm like, could you just like make this a little bit more diplomatic, like a little bit more professional? And it's great at that for like those sorts of things. Not really, I don't really do it in my personal life, but like professional things, if I, you know, stuff like that. And I've also used it recently for some technical stuff, which is really cool. Like I wanted to, Joel was telling me, you know, we're sort of saying goodbye. Well, we've said goodbye to the old site, but we've got this WordPress site, right, that has old events on it that we might want to have another event just like it. It would be useful to be able to get that description and other copy that like FAQs that we wrote up over the years. So Joel was telling me like he's planning on installing the old Puttyverse on his hard drive, like on his computer. Yeah. And I was like, you can do that? And he was like, you can do that. And Claude like walked me through it. It was not easy. I mean, probably Thomas would do it in like a second. But like for me, as I kept running into these error messages and Claude was like, oh, that's what this means. Let's try this. And I was like, and then at the end, it gave me a nice pat on the back and some emojis and was like, good job. You know, you worked hard. Like, but I got it done. And I don't think I could have done it without that assistance. So I do find it helpful for technical things like that. I used it recently to help me with my taxes. I had like this list of transactions from one of my banks and I had to upload it to Wave, and Wave was not liking the formatting of the dates. And I was like, could you just change the formatting to be in Wave's formatting? And it went through and just like did it in a minute. I would have taken me hours to do. So things like that, I find it really useful for. Yeah, I do. I get anxious when I think about like using it in any of my creative work. I just kind of like stayed away because I worry about the things like losing your skills, you know, if you.
Yeah.
And actually, this is a question I have for you, Thomas. Like, as somebody who does coding, do you worry that you're going to lose your coding skills, or is that not a concern?
I do think about that. I mean, there's a couple ways to look at it. Well, first of all, I learned a brand new language, Python, because before I was doing primarily PHP and before that Perl. So, you know, I had this background in JavaScript as well, for that matter. But I'd never touched Python for a variety of reasons. I don't have to go into that here, but Python is a really, really good language for manipulating data. And so whenever ChatGPT or Claude comes up and says, well, you know, let's do it this way, it's always going to recommend Python. And so I learned a new language by doing that. On the other hand, nowadays, just to answer your question, like I said, I'm basically interfacing with my code bases with Claude. You know, I go onto the terminal, I type in Claude, and then I tell it, Claude, I'm seeing this. Can you go take a look? Can you look in the database? Can you do this? Can you do that? Sometimes it's a long conversation. Sometimes it's a long planning thing, but I usually solve whatever I'm trying to do, whether it's fixing a bug or creating new code within 5-10 minutes, and then voila. I'm still looking at the code because it shows me and I approve it. But even there, I'm getting to the point where I say, just go for it. It's really gotten so, I mean, and this is within the last like 4 months. It's gotten so good and so accurate. I'm just stunned. Occasionally, it'll start going down a path because it's very creative. And it says, well, maybe we can do. So as an example, for one of my clients, we analyze websites. And this one particular website was really hard to analyze. And I noticed that the website itself had an API, and it was using a particular database. And it could tell all of this from looking at the shell of the website. And it started to say, well, you know, if we can get an API key and we can start snooping in their database. And I said, no, we don't want to go that far. Right? And so sometimes I just have to stop it and say, okay, this is way too deep. I want this simpler path. And I'll suggest a path based on my knowledge. I mean, I've been in software development now for 30 years. So.
Right. I guess the bigger concern might be like newer developers who don't have that experience and I don't know, and the context. And
the worry that I have is not just newer developers, but anybody going out of college into knowledge fields, whether it's being a lawyer or different types of consultancies or whatever. It's those bottom rung jobs that are being replaced very rapidly, right?
Yeah.
Paralegals. There was an instance recently where I forget what the name of the firm, but they basically went to their consulting firm and said, we want you to reduce your hourly rates because we know you're using AI.
Huh.
And the way it was worded was, we are reducing your rate that you're charging us because we know that you're using AI and we would like to take advantage of some of the efficiencies that you're seeing.
Oh.
I'm paraphrasing.
Yeah.
But
That's interesting.
I'm genuinely scared for people who are going into the workforce right now, especially in those knowledge fields.
I mean, it's like you need different kind of knowledge and different skills that AI can't reproduce, or I suppose wouldn't do as well. But what's that going to be? I think that comes back to it. That's authenticity and human connection, right? AI is not going to replace that.
Right.
So, yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah, I don't know if other writers in particular have had this experience, but I do find sometimes when I'm like writing something, I used to really like M dashes. I'm a big fan of M dashes, but now I almost never use them because I'm like, people know that AIs use a lot of M dashes, and I don't want people to think that I'm using AI. I wonder about that.
Those are the long hyphens, right? Between words?
Yeah,
the long hyphens. Yeah, they're great. But like now I'm just like...
I'll change them when people send me stuff. I'll change them to the short ones just to flag it so it doesn't look...
Oh, interesting. Yeah. Interesting.
There's actually a prompt that someone wrote. I saw this the other day. Someone wrote like a list of 200 words never to use, and make sure you never use M dashes. And you can actually give AI the prompt so that it, when it writes, you can also give samples of your own writing with the forbidden list and the no M dashes and your sample writing. You can actually have it write like you.
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, that's just it. That's
wild.
Ultimately my concern. I mean, we can only really look after ourselves, but I worry about obviously society, civilization, humanity. Like, are people going to lose their ability to write? And, like write an email. I can't stand this thing in Gmail now where it's like prompts you to write an email. Like, if I want it, I'll ask for it. Can I turn it off, please? Like, I don't need it. Yeah. And they don't let you turn it off. So I can imagine all the people like, this is great. I'll just click the button and it'll write the email for me. So you fast forward over even just a few months, years, right? How could they ever do that, write an email anymore without having an AI prompt do it for them? So this comes back, it's like the ethics of AI, like you're talking about, Thomas, with like stopping the thing from going any further and snooping around. And that's human ethics and us as individuals knowing where to stop and saying, that's enough. Because you can't rely on the technology, the companies for sure, or anyone else to like put up those gateways. They should, I suppose. But like it comes back to individuals to say, I'm going to make the moral, ethical choice to whatever it is, but to not like, go snooping around or to do anything that's ostensibly inappropriate, right? We're putting a lot of onus on each of us as individuals to make that decision. So that's a big question. But anyway, we got a minute or two here. This has been great. This is like exactly what I was hoping for. It's a great starting point. We could have more conversations like this. Who knows? Maybe we'll branch off and do some other little series and episodes or something. But it's been great to connect with you guys here. And everybody listening, hope you enjoyed it. I really encourage write some comments, as I say, underneath the post of this episode or in the circle, or we can start other things. And maybe we'll bring it back though to how do we just make sure that we keep the authenticity to the Puttyverse? It sounds obvious, we're always going to be humans and authentic. It's almost kind of like the subtitle of the Puttyverse. But one thing I have in my notes is the pressure to use AI. Everybody's using it. Why aren't you? We're supposed to be using it and make things so easy. So maybe we create, to some extent, in the Puttyverse, a place where you don't have that pressure, I suppose, just to really lean into that authenticity of our relationships here. Yeah.
It sort of relates back to this idea that as multi-potentialites, we get together and we We accept each other for having all these wonderful interests. And it's like that old question of, what do you want to be when you grow up, or what do you want to do? And it's like, no, we don't need to ask that question here. And it's the same thing with this. You don't need to use AI. There's absolutely no pressure to use it at all. Be authentic, be yourself. That's why I love this community, is we're just ourselves. And we know that we can be ourselves without having to have any intermediary or any masking.
Yeah. There's something kind of refreshing about when, going into the forum or circle now, and somebody writing like a long block of text. I mean, sometimes it's hard to read, but you're like, that was written by a person. That's authentic. That's expression. Yep. I mean, somebody the other day posted, didn't post any, they did a little intro with the subject line, but there was no text in the main text box, and it was, people started replying just based on the subject line, and it was really nice. And then the person commented, and it was like, okay, this was clearly a mistake, but it's beautiful. It's beautiful and human, and yeah, I love that about the verse. I do.
That's great. Yeah, well, I mean, I think we can, maybe the closing thought is that the Puttyverse was doing just fine before AI came around, right? We don't need it. If it didn't exist, we would be fine. So maybe that's a perspective we can keep in mind too. I mean, in the face of the pressure and so on to integrate AI into our lives, it makes sense, I guess. But yeah, we've been around for, how many years has it been now? 15 years?
14 years.
Yeah. Hey, so
almost exactly. I think Friday might be our 14-year Puttyversary, actually. But,
nice.
Yeah.
Wow.
Good timing.
Fabulous.
Cool. Well, thanks everyone. Thanks for being here.
Well, yeah, thank you, everyone. Thank you, Ted. Thank you, Thomas.
Thank you.
For doing the experiment. It's been lovely.
And the final point, so this is what I do in Multipod, especially now, is I like to connect listeners with the guests. So our guests, what do they have to share to promote? How would you like to connect with people, point them to a certain project, maybe a conversation about something? I will perhaps at least mention for Thomas his podcast with our friend Annie, Wandering Weirdly. So definitely check that out. Anything else you want to plug?
I make a lot of art, and you can see it at thomasbeutel.art.
Great. And Emilie, what are you working on these days?
Oh my goodness.
Pick one.
I mean, other than the Puttyverse, a lot of TV writing projects. There's a little bit of movement there, which is really exciting. I've been writing pilots for many years now, and starting to so that's very fun for me.
Is there anything people can check out, like see or read or?
So bettersweaterproductions.com is the website that my writing partner Rena and I put together. It's got descriptions of our projects and little bios and stuff. And
cool. Nice. I'll check it out. Well, hey, thanks again. And last thing, anybody listening, if you like what you hear, share and like and all that stuff, that's great. But come on the Multipod, have a conversation with me and whoever else might be here. We'd love to have you. So we'll see you next time.